Welcome to Step Into the Pivot. We're your hosts. I'm Teresa Conti.
And I'm Ivana Polonio. We talk with people just like you. We have honest conversations about current issues that women and men face and how we pivot to address them in our lives.
This podcast is your companion as you step into a workout or take some time for yourself.
This conversation is being brought to you in two parts. Today, our conversation with Mickie Murphy starts off talking about her incredible journey in 2023, and then we will continue next week talking about how she moves forward from her big pivot. Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Step Into the Pivot, where Teresa and I are so excited and honored to welcome our friend, Mickie Murphy. Mickie, welcome to the show. And yes, such an awesome moment to be here with you.
Thank you.
You are a courageous being. You are such a role model for bravery, resilience, and leading your life with love, and really using your uh, using your heart, using your intellect, using your beautiful voice that comes through kind and compassionate in so many different settings. Teresa and I have been honored to, work alongside with you. So we've seen you in a lot of different capacities, and it's just so wonderful that also with so much availability, you've said yes to record this special episode with us. And I say special because you have a very special and unique story, and we're going to get into that. You also have a very special and unique bio. We can talk about it more traditionally. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to highlight the highlights. So if I was writing your bio, one of the first things I would put up there is that Mickie is someone who is so devoted and dedicated to family values. One of the first things I learned about you when we met, now quite a few years ago, was how much you loved your family, how much you loved your husband, and how important your marriage is to you. And I learned from you that your marriage really is not only something that is, a dedicated practice for you, but it is a place of role modeling how to be married with purpose on purpose for others. So you and your husband mentor other couples. What a cool thing to be highlighting as part of your bio, and really helping people tune into faith and how faith is part of relationship, especially as you counsel folks who are ready to say yes to marriage and preparation for a lifetime relationship. And to our listeners and our viewers, pay attention here. I'm highlighting these things for a reason. You're going to see how they come up in Mickie's story. And another thing I want to highlight before I turn it over to Teresa is that sense of adventure that you and your husband share with regards to travel and exploration of a lot of different places. Let me check my notes so I don't get this wrong. You have lived with your husband in 18 different places since you got married 30 years ago. Let me make sure that my Croatian accent is pronouncing this correctly. 30, guys, that's 30. You've owned 7 houses and lived in 6 different states. Do I have all that correct, Mickie?
Yes, I think, yes. Correct.
You've lived on both coasts and in the middle also before maybe you got married. So another little like spoiler alert here for our listeners. So tune into the idea of adventure, lots of landscape covering, a lot of different experiences, you and your husband, journeying.
Like most of us, Mickie fell into the retirement industry by accident. That's, I think, what we all do, especially us who've been in this business a long, long time. I think you're around 21. You were working as a temp for a bank, and now have been working on retirement plans for a long, long time. So where I would like you to start is that 2023 was a really big year for you in many, many ways. So let's kind of start how 2023 started off for you. And I think this started actually in mid 2022 when you were asking about being president of the firm you work for. So can you kind of start there with us? Because I love this story about how you became president of Blue Benefits Consulting.
I would be happy to. So as you mentioned, I have been in this industry a long time. I've worked a lot of different places and in a lot of different formats. I came to Blue Benefits Consulting to head up this practice as they found things had changed. And so I was taking care of multiple locations and doing conversions and bringing all those people together who had been kind of us and them and making us one team. And had been doing that. I think it was about 7 years at that point. And then we're related to a CPA firm where you have very few levels and they're all kind of laid out where you come in as associate and get promoted to manager and then senior manager and then maybe partner. Well, I wasn't any of those things. I was third-party administrator, same type of thing you're familiar with, and had been running this practice as senior manager. We even acquired another practice where the owner came in as principal, and here I was over him as senior manager. So I'd given information to somebody else to present as president's address for 3 years in a row. And by about that time, I was kind of tired of that and did a little research and found out I didn't have to be an owner or a CPA to be president of our practice. And after I'd had my annual review with my managing partner, I said, yes, I do have one more thing I want to bring up. And I'm just wondering, is there something I'm doing or not doing that is keeping you from making me president? And he kind of sat back and he said, well, because we're jerks. And I keep saying I'm not going to say it that way anymore, but that is exactly what he said. And I said, well, I don't really know if that's the case. And he said, well, we just never thought about that, but I have a couple of questions. And so we talked about that, and there was stuff that, that when they had started out 30 years ago, they had to have certain people doing certain things and licensing, and none of that was required anymore. And he said, well, we have to vote on this. The partners have to vote on this. And I said, okay, that's, fine. I'm here, kind of nothing's changed. And that was in June. And on December 1st, I got an email that says you've been elected as president. I said, oh, okay, good. When does that take effect? He said, yesterday when we did the election. I said, okay, so when can I start using that title? He says, oh, now. I said, so I could put it in my tag on my email. I said, oh, yeah, sure. I said, okay, thanks. That was kind of it. I was made president.
What a great story. And what would have happened if you didn't ask, right? Like, that's what I'm sitting here thinking, right?
It would have been nothing.
But
it would have been
how
nothing.
brave it was for you to ask, for sure. For sure.
So that's the moral to the story is I was getting pretty grumpy sitting around thinking, why haven't they made me president? Surely someone would have noticed I've been running this and I've been supplying the information and I'm doing everything from budget to firing and hiring, usually in the other way around. But it had never occurred to somebody that I wasn't a partner in the CPA firm. Why would I be president of this practice? But none of my people are CPAs. So the fun thing for me then was in July of each year, they have a time when people from the different entities come and present to directors meeting. Directors are partners in our firm. And I was invited to speak to that, to give out my 10-minute president's report at that. And what I didn't say was it was a bigger deal than just me to be president of my practice, because I was the first one who wasn't a CPA. I was the first one who wasn't an owner of the firm. And it gave my whole team something to look up to, that we could be president. Anybody and I've got one young person that she doesn't know she's being groomed, but I think that she could be that someday. And I've actually told her, you could be president if you wanted to. So there's that goal that's there that wasn't there before, because there'd actually been people told, well, you'll never be more than a manager because you're not a CPA, you're not a partner. So this was a big deal. My whole team knows I'm going to go do the president's report at the directors meeting. And I had my 10 minutes of fame and got a lot of, pats on the backs and attaboys. And I left there just delighted because I know it's a big deal in more ways than just me being given a different title. It was in Lexington because they rotate that among different locations for our CPA offices. And I was driving back to north of Indianapolis to get home. Exciting to get home, but on the other hand, it's a 3.5-hour drive. So I'm driving, get north of Cincinnati, and I'm on the outside lane and look over in the car in the inside lane just like stomps on the gas. And I'm thinking, what the heck is going on? As a minivan comes across the median at full speed and hits me head on. So I feel the car spin. I don't have any identification of the other vehicle, but I'm still fully aware as the bag has gone off and then deflated again. And kind of looking around the car, I'm thinking, I don't see my phone. My bag is dumped over onto the floor. Oh, looks like it's the battery, but nothing else has come through the car. That's all. Look down. Yeah, I think that's a compound fracture. Legs kind of not doing too well. I'm really slumped down in the seat. I wonder how I get help. I have no idea where I am, kind of out in the middle of nowhere on the highway. And this sweet voice comes over my shoulder. The window must have broken out because I was riding with the AC on. And said, and I find out later she could hear me talking to myself. I wasn't thinking those things. She heard me talk about my arm, the compound fracture, and she just says, "Is there someone I can call?" And I said, "Yes, my husband." And remember thinking his phone is 1 digit off from mine. I have to remember to give her Joe's number, and I did. She called him. So I was that much aware still. She called him and put me on. So I have your wife here. Put me on, and I said, "Well, I've been in an accident. I think you need to come." And so he tells me that I sounded like I must have been kind of in shock. He was in the middle of painting our living room. Tells this young lady, I'll be there just as soon as I can. Washes the brushes, throws some things in an overnight bag, and drives the 3 hours to Cincinnati. Meantime, this young woman stays in touch with him, texting him. The ambulance is here. They're cutting her out of the car with the jaws of life. They're putting her in a medevac and taking her to the Cincinnati hospital with the address. So he was able to drive directly there. I have no idea how I was fully aware up to that point. I remember nothing after talking to him until waking up in the hospital. And at some point, I found out this past week, actually, that I gave my husband some people's names to call and let them know. And somebody in particular, I had wondered, how did she know? Because she came and visited me in the ICU. I had spelled it out for him to call her. But they were listed 25 injuries that Joe immediately recognized on there. I had both forearms broken, both bones and hands, and I was casted up to my fingertips. My right leg was in traction with, things holding it together immediately. I'm just trying to think. 8 ribs broken. My abdomen had just been destroyed by the seatbelt. It kept me from going through the windshield, but it did serious damage. I look kind of like a hot cross bun right now. So it was 4 days before they removed the ventilator, and my family felt like my mom felt like she could leave. My son and his wife were there, as well as Joe. So that just started a 4-month stay in the hospital. I was there in Cincinnati until October, when I was finally moved closer to my home, which about an hour away that Joe could get back and forth to during the day and take care of our 3 cats and all the good things that come with taking care of a home. I was home for a couple of weeks briefly, and then went back in to have some revision or surgery on my knee. And I neglected to say that. 3 weeks after the accident, my leg was in such bad shape that I was told that they recommended amputation at the knee. And I knew that it was in such bad shape that I didn't want it there anymore. So when this sweet young man came to me and told me that news, that was heartbreaking in a very real sense. And I knew he dreaded telling me. I just said, take it off, get it off of me. I know I'll heal. Because that as soon as it was gone, the pain that I was in was gone. I knew that it was a mess. They had tried so many things. I'd had 15 surgeries by then, between the leg and my arms. I wave them around like on my arms. So that was a lot of recovery to go through. They had given me colostomy in the 2 days that were abdominal surgeries that just saved my life. That just recently was reversed July 1st. So that it's kind of been a long journey. 2023, I was finally home from the last knee surgery and a couple more weeks in rehab after that, December 15th. So from July 12th, 23 to December 15th, 23, I was in hospital or rehab. And I started work on January 2nd.
One of the most amazing stories, honestly. I love that you tell this, and I love that you tell it in that way. So I'm really even gonna ask you some other questions, but I want to ask you, can you tell us about Betty? So you didn't really mention Betty.
No, I haven't.
Betty is, I love Betty. So tell us who Betty is.
So I stopped at January 2nd. January 2nd, I did go back to work part-time while I was still recovering from anesthesia and some of the other things. Anesthesia kind of, some people gives you brain fog. So I knew I needed to work out of that. So I was working 10 or 15 hours a week, which is, as you know, rarely works that way. It was probably more like 20 or 25. And in February, I had healed well enough in January from my knee surgery to be fitted for prosthetic. And I always say my leg guy because it's easier than prosthesist. And I have a prosthetic leg that I was given in February, and I call her Betty because I can put her in the corner when I'm tired of her or she's misbehaving. And one of the fun things to know about Betty, she has a microprocessor in the knee that controls the hydraulics, which is very cool. I don't fall down really fast if I trip. The knee just kind of collapses slowly. So it's actually pretty humorous when it happens, and that hasn't happened in a while. But I have a funny story from probably the last time that it happened, getting out of the car in the driveway, and Joe lets me into the garage so I don't have to, squeeze between things. And I got out and I stubbed my toe, and he's still in the car with it running, and I just kind of went down slowly till I was on my knee, and then I got to giggling because I could just imagine what he could see from his side of the car was my head going down the stair, just slow motion. So I was laughing so hard by that point, I just rolled over on my back. I'm laying in the driveway and I hear the car turn off, the door close, and Joe come up and look over me and say, "You okay?" I said, "Yes, I am." He says, "Can I help you up?" I said, "No, my knee doesn't work that way. I got to get up on my hands and knees." So now I'm in the grass on my hands and knees saying, "Now take my hand." So who knows what the neighbors saw. But Betty is marvelous. I introduce anybody who's interested in Betty to her, and I'm happy to show her. I have toes on my foot, so I could wear sandals properly if I wanted to. Little children who look may get more information than they want, because I'll say, "Oh, are you looking at my leg? Let me show you. Here's the knee. Isn't that cool?" And I saw a little girl the other day, and she was admiring my leg. I was wearing a skirt, and I did that. "Oh, you want to see?" "Yes." And so we had a little fashion show, and she says, can you walk over there for me so I can look? And I did, and I came back. I said, did I do okay? She says, that was great. So I'm totally transparent. Anybody wants to know gets to more information than they want, probably.
Your laughter is so infectious. It's so beautiful. And Teresa and I tend to keep ourselves in mute mode while our, guests are speaking, as you can see if you're looking at the video. But it's like it's just infectious because it's real. And I love noticing that. So you are telling that story. It's humorous, and you're letting yourself kind of like look at it humorously and joyfully, and being like, and who knows what the neighbors saw. And then there's this like loving quality, not harsh and sarcastic, but like, who cares what the neighbors saw? Because
Oh,
there's like, then that transparency, you are just authentic, like, yeah, look, kids, here is are you curious about this? Let me show you. Just
yeah.
loving that here, learning about, learning about the challenges, but then you're bringing in the humor, you're bringing in, it's like full spectrum, everything. We've just witnessed it here.
It's how people ask me how did you do this, or they'll tell me I don't know how you did this. Well, that's one of it. If you don't laugh, you do the opposite. I've always kind of been that personality, not to take myself too seriously. Nobody else does, so you kind of have to go with the flow, right? My family treats things with humor. I had my leg amputated. My brother says, can I call you Peg now? I said, no, I think that's going a little too far. But I don't know what to call this. It stump sounds kind of, weird. And come to find out later, the medical professionals now call that a residual leg, which I think that's so bizarre too. I just call it my short leg. But here they were my son and his wife and I were sitting around going, well, what shall we name that? I mean, so if you don't have a sense of humor, it really doesn't help, I think. And that's just kind of my go-to. And it's not like you say, I do not care for sarcasm. My husband and I have a joke. I'll tell him sarcasm doesn't become you, because it doesn't. It's usually it's acrid, and that's not what I am. What I am is choosing to be lighthearted about things that a lot of people take too seriously. I knew when they came and told me that I needed to have my leg amputated what was going to happen. I've seen that. I've seen people with a leg that's been amputated that are in a wheelchair for the rest of their lives. I've seen people who use a prosthetic and can walk. I knew what they were talking about, but I also knew that could be me. I can walk. I can use the tools that I'm given. I've seen handicapped people all my life, and you can either sit in the corner, go into a dark place and curl up and die, or you can choose to live every day and use the tools that you have and use the resources that you have. I choose that, and I will choose that. Some days it's not so easy. I will tell you that I came home with a wheelchair that was large, and I sat in my bedroom and cried. And my husband said, what is the matter? I said, I'm tearing up the new baseboard you just put in. He's like, I'll paint it again. Don't worry about it. But it's, and then I'm laughing. He's like, I'll paint them. It's no big deal. Okay, you're right. I don't know why I'm crying. It's a choice a lot of times. But if you live that all the time, that choice is minimal. It's you just get used to that way of living.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Step Into the Pivot. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights from our conversation. Remember, life is a series of pivots, and it's in those moments of change that we truly grow.
If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay connected, make sure to check out our websites. You'll find additional resources, behind-the-scenes content, and more details about our incredible guests. We love hearing from listeners, so reach out with your thoughts, questions, or your own pivot stories.
To keep the conversation going, be sure to follow us on social media. We're on LinkedIn and Instagram, where we share updates, quotes, and engage with our amazing community.
If you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback makes a difference and it helps us bring you meaningful conversations. We're signing off, reminding you that every pivot is a step forward. Take care, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Step Into the Pivot.